Greetings, viewers. JLB here, back after a long hiatus, and today we're going to be talking about another show that kind of resembles The Annoying Orange a bit, but it was done years before The Annoying Orange even appeared on YouTube or got his own television series. You see, after Clutch Cargo was made by Cambria Productions, years after Clutch Cargo, they decided to try again and create a show with the Synchro-Vox lip technique that you see in The Annoying Orange, or if you've seen in Clutch Cargo. This lip technique was used in another show by Cambria Productions, but this time set in space. That is Space Angel. Space Angel, as the name would suggest, was an animated science fiction show produced by Cambria Pictures, creators of Clutch Cargo, and made in the United States from early 1962 through 1964. I don't really have much information about the actual dates, the official start date and ending date for Space Angel. Now, the series followed the adventures of three particular astronauts who worked for the EBI ISF, or Earth Bureau of Investigation's Interplanetary Space Force. But we'll just say they worked for the EBI, a space version of the FBI. They fly aboard the spaceship known as the Starduster, and the captain/pilot is Scott McCloud, better known as Space Angel. He's voiced by, Ned Lefevre, however you want to say it. Anyway, the electronics communications expert of the team is Crystal Mace, voiced by Margaret Carey. And there's the immensely strong Scottish-born gunner/engineer Taurus, who was voiced by Al Smith. Now, Crystal Mace, I only know Crystal Mace happens to have a sequence of, a full sequence of episodes that feature her as a bit of a starring role, but the only way I know about Space Angel is by watching an episode called The Ghost and the Crystal Mace, or The Ghost and Crystal Mace, depending on how you want to say it, but anyway, on with the show. Now, apparently, from what I'm reading, the character name of Space Angel was a secret identity of sorts. But that doesn't mean that Scott McCloud, aka Space Angel, is a superhero. Not by any means. He's not going off to other planets fighting aliens who are targeting the Earth for total annihilation or invasion. No. He's just a bit of an explorer, as is part of his job in the EBI. Anyway, Scott has an eye patch, but when he appeared as Space Angel, he would lower his dark-tinted visor on his helmet in order to conceal his identity. Don't really understand why he would do such a thing, because, well, I don't see any of the aliens from the planets he's visiting actually coming by to Earth and saying, "Remember when you came over to my place? Yeah, I remember you." But anyway, apart from the use of Synchro-Vox, the animation on this show, just like Clutch Cargo, was very limited. However, the static panel art by the renowned Alex Toth was well drawn for what I've seen. And just like Clutch Cargo, storylines were serialized over multiple episodes, in this case 5, which ran for about 5 minutes each. The idea being that the stations could show one episode per week, or one episode per weekday, with the climax coming in on Friday. Cliffhangers were often used. If you're expecting those helicopter dudes from Between the Lines to come and sing in Cliffhanger, I kinda sent them off a ways, so we don't have to worry about that. Anyway, cliffhangers were sometimes used, as in an episode with McCloud finding a derelict spacecraft beyond the light barrier. And another memorable sequence occurred with the heroes involved in a best 2 out of 3 gladiator fight, using futuristic versions of Roman weapon. Well, pardon me, future visions of Roman combat. Yeah, there were plenty of episodes that featured wild, out there alien worlds, but I don't really know too much about Space Angel other than what I'm reading, so let's continue. Now, there were several episodes that involved space combat between the Interplanetary Space Force and various enemies. After Space Angel and his crew discover the villain's plans or forces, he would call in for reinforcements, made up of one or more squadrons of the ISF squadrons. Pardon me, just one or more squadrons of the ISF. Sorry, I'm kind of reading it correctly. Anyway, squadrons were organized by planetary patrol areas such as the Venusian Squadron, the Mars Squadron, Saturn Squadron, etc., etc. The identifying squadron symbols on the ISF ships were the ones used in, bizarrely, astronomy charts from way back in the 60s to identify the planets, such as the female symbol for the Venus Squadron, or the male symbol for the Mars Squadron, and a circle with an enclosed plus sign for the Earth Squadron. Now, the closest thing the show had to antagonists were the Athenians. They were modeled on a combination of ancient Rome and Sparta. Their home planet is shown in the episode involving the gladiatorial games. Their basic city looks like Rome, including the Colosseum. The civilians are dressed in togas, much like in Rome, and the soldiers are wearing a combination of Greek and Roman armor with Corinthian-style helmets. The only difference? They were armed with blaster rifles. So, it kind of makes them future Spartans, or future Greek warriors, or whatever you want to say. Now, another close thing the show had to a primary villain was Zora, the evil queen of space, who resembled Nefertiti and her henchmen, the General and the Major, who all spoke with Central European accents. Of course, they predated the Star Trek episode Balance of Terror, for all of you Star Trek fans out there. Their claim to fame would be an invisible spaceship that they used to disrupt interstellar trade. Now, the Starduster did dock with a space station once in the opening sequence of Space Hijackers. The ship kind of matched velocity and rotation with the station and was talked in with the instrument assist. I mention all this because this sequence kind of foreshadows the space dock sequence that you would see on the Delta-winged Orion in 2001: A Space Odyssey, which would be made just 7 years after the show was made in 1969. And if you listen to the theme song for Space Angel, you definitely might recognize it if you're an old school sci-fi film person. If you are, you'll notice that the theme music was written by Walter Green and used originally in Roger Corman's black and white drama sci-fi film, The War of the Satellites from 1958. If you're not a big sci-fi fan, can't really say much for War of the Satellites, but all I can say is that it's definitely influential. So with that all being said, is Space Angel worth revisiting? Well, let's go back to when I was talking about Clutch Cargo. That show was okay. This show, it's also okay. It's not really groundbreaking or anything, but it did set the stage for what would come years later with The Annoying Orange, who we all know and, for some of us, loathe. But in all seriousness, if you want to say you've seen them all, give Space Angel a look. If you're a sci-fi film juggernaut, definitely have a look. It might be worth your time. But for everyone else, it's best to just keep a good distance away. Not completely ignore it, I mean. If you enjoyed watching the High Fructose Fructose Adventures of the Annoying Orange on Cartoon Network when it used to air, you might see where the Synchro-Vox technique came from, with live-action mouths and eyes on a inanimate object. You can see where that came from by watching this and Clutch Cargo. But in my opinion, not really all that great a show. But hey, that's just my opinion. And with that, that wraps up my first video in a long time. Thanks so much for joining me. And definitely stay tuned and stick around, because if my notes are correct, and by notes I mean my computer, our next show should be either of these three: Deputy Dog, The Jetsons, or the Hanna-Barbera new cartoon series. But either way, thank you very much for watching, and stay animated, and I'll see you all next time.